We're going to be tying the Bucktail Minnow, which is one of my favorite flies for catching Guadalupe bass in the Guadalupe River here in central Texas. You're going to take a size 2 Tiemco hook, wrap the thread all the way back to the bend of the hook, and start off by putting in some crystal flash. I like to make sure that there's enough material left. I probably am using like 8 strands, 7 to 8 strands. And you want to make sure there's enough of the material so that you can helicopter wrap it all the way to the front of the hook. So that takes a little while, but you want to make sure it's as even as you can make it. If you run out, you can always tie in some more. And if it's not perfect, that's okay. This is going to be the interior of the fly, which kind of looks like the guts. You can see it through the bucktail. And to me, it's just like a sexy little added fun part of this fly that I think fish really find appealing. Once you've got it wrapped up, tie it in, add a knot, and then we're going to use UV resin thin, and I'm going to put a healthy amount of this all up and down the shank and then do a couple of rotations so that it is as even as I can make it. I actually mess it up here and leave a little bit of an extra glob of it towards the front end of the hook, but at the end of the day, the fish aren't really going to be looking at how even your UV is. It has more to do with making it extra shiny, and it just looks extra nice too. If you didn't put the UV finish on it, this fly would still catch fish. It'd still be nice and shiny on the middle of it, but it definitely looks a little bit nicer if you add this step. Take your light, cure it, do a couple of rotations to make sure it's nice and dry. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna add your bucktail. I always start off on top, and I use the brown on top because the bottom of a minnow is going to be white, and then the top is usually brown or olive green or tan. And so we're going to start by taking the bucktail, and you're going to cut off maybe like a little bit smaller than the width of a pencil, and you're going to cut it off tight and close to the base of the bucktail so that you've got a lot to work with. And then I hair stack it, which if you want to know how to do that, look up a YouTube video on how to hair stack. So you're going to do a couple of loose wraps to start and then tighten it as you go. Then you're going to cut off the excess as close to the thread as you can. Once you've done that, you can do a couple of wraps to make sure that it's nice and smooth. Some people put a little bit of glue on here to make it more tied down. I don't. I usually just get the white bucktail and start by putting the rest. Another almost like pencil width amount of white, 2 loose wraps, and then you start tightening it. It's going to make all the fibers kind of balloon out, and then snip it off as best you can. Touch that up a little bit, and then you're going to wrap up as best you can and make a big red thread dam. I like using red because it looks kind of like gills or blood, especially after you hide it underneath these 2 big eyes that I'm going to be using. Snip it off, put in some glue, and you don't want to put too much glue. I put enough so that I'll let it dry for a little bit too. I want to put the eyes on there after it's been on there for a little while so that it's not slippery when you put the eyes on. And then I'll also put a little bit of glue on the hair to help make it more angular, if that's the right word. A lot of times if you tie down the bucktail too much, it'll splay out super broadly, and I don't want that. I want it to be more straight. So I get these eyes off of Amazon. I think you get like 500 for 20 bucks, which is a way more cost-effective way to buy them than to go to a fly shop where you're paying like $5 for 10. So you're gonna put some pressure on both eyes. Try to make sure they're as lined up as possible and as even as possible, because if they're not, the fly will swim in kind of an awkward way. I'm gonna add some glue to make sure that thread isn't going to come undone. And then what I'm going to do is probably wait a few minutes and turn on my fan. Here I'm actually using some foam that's just discarded from another fly to take out the extra glue, and then I'm going to use some UV thick finish And you're going to put that on there so that it can fill in the gaps and make the head of this fly just look super sexy. So I'll do the top first, then you're going to hit it with the UV light. I do that because if you do a lot of this UV on there and just start rotating it around, it's going to droop everywhere and that won't look as good. Instead, I think it's better to just do sections of it. So I'll do the top, now I'm doing the bottom, and then I'm going to do either side. And after you do each side, you cure it with the UV light, and then eventually it comes out looking pretty nice. The way I like to fish this fly is, it depends on what time of year and where I am, but if I'm in Town Lake in Austin, which is kind of a deeper place, if I'm on a boat, is I'll throw it towards the bank, let it sink for maybe 5 to 10 seconds, and then strip it super slow. And you almost always catch at least some fingerling bass, not even a pound, but it really does get a lot of hits from these younger bass, and then every once in a while you'll catch a really nice big bass with it. To finish the fly off, I'm going to use the UV thin again. It just adds an extra little polish that makes it fly look extra nice. Make sure that UV light is there to cure it all. Brush back the hair, and there you go. So here I'm fishing in Town Lake or Ladybird Lake in Austin, Texas. This is right in front of the entrance to kind of where the Barton Springs pool is. I'm on a little boat that I've got, and I've been casting at the bank and dragging in my fly at about 2 to 3 feet. I catch the first of 2 bass for the day on this fly, and not a very big fish, definitely very pretty. But I always use this fly to start the day over there because there's a ton of fingerling bass there and they're fun to catch. Here's another one underneath the bridge. Again, throwing it next to structure 2 to 3 feet deep is great for springtime bass. But if you want to get like bigger fish, then you go really, really slow and try to let it sink deeper. But yeah, that's all. Thank you for watching my video. This is the Bucktail Minnow.